Alright, welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the AP Computer Science A free response question number 2. So let's go over the problem statement first. So this one says, this question involves a scoreboard for a game. The game is played between two teams who alternate turns so that at any given time, one team is active and the other team is inactive. During a turn, a team makes one or more plays. Each play can score one or more points, and the team's turn continues, or the play can fail, in which case no points are scored and the team's turn ends. The scoreboard class, which you will write, is used to keep track of the score in a game. What we're going to be writing in this problem is a class. This continues on, so the scoreboard class contains a constructor and two methods. The constructor has two parameters. The first parameter is a string containing the name of team 1, and the second parameter is a string containing the name of team 2. The game always begins with team 1 as the active team. The recordPlay method has a single non-negative integer parameter that is equal to the number of points scored on a play, or 0 if the play failed. If the play results in 1 or more points scored, the active team score is updated and that team remains active. If the value of the parameter is 0, active team's turn ends and the inactive team becomes the active team. The recordPlay method does not return a value. And finally, the getScore method has no parameters. The method returns a string containing information about the current state of the game. The return string begins with the score of team 1, followed by a hyphen, followed by the score of team 2, followed by a hyphen, followed by the name of the team that is currently active. And then we have this table of method calls and an explanation of what happens after that method call happens. And then we're being told to write the complete scoreboard class. Your implementation must meet all specifications and conform to the examples shown in the preceding table. We know that we're going to be writing a class, so we can go ahead with the class declaration. We want this class to be public scoreboard, and then we will be writing it within those curly braces. So what do we know about this scoreboard class? Well, we know that we're going to have a constructor that takes two parameters. It takes in a string containing the name of team 1, and it also takes in another string containing the name of team 2. So what this signifies to me is we're going to be having some sort of internal state that keeps track of the names of the teams. Okay, so above our constructor where we declare our internal state or our fields, we know that we're going to have some sort of string for name of team 1 and string for name of team 2. Why do I know that this is internal state that we're going to be keeping track of? Well, you'll notice that if you take a look at the getScore description, we're actually going to be using the name of the team that is currently active, so we need to have that internal state saved somewhere so that we can use it in that parameter, right? We don't just need it in that constructor. We're going to be using that later on down the line on our scoreboard object. So just because it takes two parameters does not mean that this is the only internal state that we're going to need to have. You'll also notice within the getScore method, it says the return string begins with the score of team 1, followed by a hyphen, followed by the score of team 2. So some more internal state that we're going to want to keep track of is actually the score for each team. And what is the best type that we could use to keep track of the score? Well, we know that we're going to be adding to the score using the recordPlay method, which takes in a non-negative integer parameter. So it would make sense for the scores of each team to also be held inside of an integer. So int for score of team 1, int for score of team 2. So there's probably one more piece of information that we want to keep track of here within our class, but let's go ahead and take a look at our methods first and see if we can figure out what that might be. So we know we want that constructor. We also know we want the recordPlay method that takes one parameter, single non-negative integer parameter that is equal to the number of points scored on a play, or 0 if the play failed. Okay. And then lastly, we have our getScore method. So getScore method that has no parameters. It returns a string that represents the current state All right, so I think the easiest place for us to start is probably the constructor. So remember, our constructors are public. We want people to be able to instantiate a scoreboard object. So public scoreboard. It takes in those two parameters. So string team1, team1 name, string team2 name. All right, so within the constructor, remember, we want to initialize our internal state that we've determined up here. So we haven't set the names for these yet. Let's say string team1 name. Let's say this is, oh, and we also want to set the visibility of the state. And for us, it would be private. We don't want anybody who initializes a scoreboard to be able to manipulate the team1 name, team2 name. We want that information private to just our class. So private string team2 name, int team1 score, int team2 score, and then we have this other state that we'll get to. Because I went ahead and I named the parameter and the internal state the same thing, that is, they're both named team1 name and team2 name, we will want to use the keyword this. So when we use this, we're referring to this internal state. So this.team1 name should be equal to team1 name, where the other side of the equal sign is equal to the parameter. So then we can do the same thing for team2 name. This.team2 name, so I'm referring to the field here, is equal to team2 name. I'm referring to the parameter. And then we want to initialize each of our scores. So they're starting off with 0 points for both teams. So set that equal to 0, set that equal to 0 as well. So since we don't have a parameter that has the same name as team1 score, we could actually also just eliminate our this here. Or you could keep it if you want to be a little bit more verbose, a little bit more clear that you're specifically talking about our internal state. We also need private here as well. And then we're going to be initializing some other state, but we'll get to that in the next method. So moving on to the recordPlay method, this takes in a parameter. So public recordPlay. It doesn't return anything. This is mentioned in the last sentence of that description of the recordPlay method. So we're going to want to do public void recordPlay. And then it takes in a integer parameter. So int, let's call it maybe num points. Okay. So what does this method does? If the number of points is not equal to 0, that means that the active team we should add the number of points that they recorded in this play to their total score. But if it is 0, then that means that the play failed and the active team switches to the other team. So if num points is equal to 0, the active team's turn ends. Otherwise, add that number of points to the active team score. All right, so let's deal with the if num points is equal to 0 case first. If num points is equal to 0, so what does this mean? This means the active team's turn ends. So, okay, but wait, how do we know what team is active right now? Right now, the only state that we have is team1 name, team2 name, the score of team 1 and the score of team 2. So we're actually going to want another piece of internal state to determine which team is currently active. So do we want a string for this? Maybe not. Do we want an int? Maybe not as well. I think what would be perfect for this is a Boolean value. So Boolean for active team. And you'll see as I implement recordPlay why a Boolean would be the best for this. So private Boolean, let's call it something like is team1 active. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put these here just so we can save some vertical space. Then we also want to initialize this internal state in the constructor. So this dot is team1 active. So what do we say? Within the description of the constructor, the last sentence says the game always begins with team 1 as the active team. So we're going to go ahead and set this equal to true. So we start off with team 1 being active. So now moving back down to the recordPlay method. So if number of points is equal to 0, the active team's turn ends. So what this means is we can set is team 1 active equal to the opposite of the current value of is team 1 active. So we can use the negation symbol, the exclamation mark, to negate is team 1 active. And so let's kind of talk through why this makes sense, why doing this makes sense. So let's say, for example, we just started the game and is team 1 active is equal to true right now. Let's say then, for example, that we wanted to, that we did record play and we called that with 0. So we would go into this if statement, and now we want to set is team 1 active to the negation of is team 1 active. So we want team 2 to now be active, so that would be setting is team 1 active equal to false. So now within our eternal state, we're aware that team 2 is active. All right. So that's the if num points case. Otherwise, so we know that this is going to be a non-negative integer. So we know that if it's not going to be 0, it's going to be some number greater than 0. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to add that number of points to the active team score. So here, here's why one of the reasons that using a Boolean is very useful for keeping track of which team is active, because we can just do something like is team 1 active. So if we pass that, we know that team 1 is the active team right now. And what we can do is we can take their score and plus equals the num points that was passed into this method. We could also write this as team 1 score is equal to team 1 score plus num points, but I like the how succinct this is, where we just do the plus equals. Okay. Otherwise, so if team 1 is not active, there's only 2 teams, so the only other team that can be active is team 2. So what we're going to do is add that to team 2's scores, plus equals num points. And that's it for our record play method. So let's go ahead and do the getScore method now. All right, getScore has no parameters. So public, you might be tempted to put a void here, but remember it returns a string. So the return type here would be string, public string getScore, no parameters. So we don't put anything within those parentheses. And now we want to return a string that represents the current state of the game. So this would look like if the score was, for example, team 1 had 1 point, we'd put the team 1 score, then the team 2 score, let's say, for example, it was 0. And let's say, for example, the active team's name was red. This is what we would be returning. So we want to build up a string here. So let's say string score is equal to, so this string is made up of a bunch of internal information. So first thing we need is the score of team 1. So that would be team 1 score. Then we can use string concatenation. We can do a plus sign and a hyphen. So now when you do this, what it does is it creates a string, and then we can go ahead and add team 2 score. We want that as well. And then what we want to add is the name of the currently active team. All right, so how do we determine that? Right now, our internal state is just whether team 1 is active or not. So we're going to want to create another string called active team name, and we can go ahead and set that equal to team 1 name, for example. And so this would work if team 1 is active, right? However, we're going to want to change the active team name to be the team 2 name if team 1 is not active. So if team 1 is not active, using that negation again, then what we set active team name equal to team 2 name. So now we should have both of the cases covered of if team 1 is active or team 2 is active. So we can go ahead and add another hyphen and add active team name, and that should be the string that we built up. So we can go ahead and return score. We can even return just like, we don't even need to put this in a string. I thought this would just make it a little bit easier to see what we're doing, but we could just return that line of code, and that would be our getScore method. Yeah, and so this is our Scoreboard class. So luckily for us, there is a table of a bunch of statements that we can go ahead and go through and make sure that our scoreboard class actually works as intended. So let's go ahead and do that now. The first statement is they just declare a new string called info. This doesn't have anything to do with our scoreboard class. This is happening in some class outside of our class. So this is just going to keep track of the score later on. We don't really need to worry about this first statement. So the second statement actually is relevant to us. What it does is it creates a new scoreboard and it passes in red and blue as the two parameters into our constructor. So what we're going to do is we're going to set team1 name equal to that first value that's passed in. So we know that the name of team1 is red, the name of team2 is blue. And then at this point, since no one has scored any points, we are going to set both of our scores equal to 0, and since we know that the game starts off with team1 being active, we know that this value is going to be true. So that's it for that statement, and this matches up with the explanation. Then what we're going to do is it looks like we're going to call getScore. So we set active team name equal to team1 name, which is red. We check whether team1 is not active. Remember, this is still true, so if you negate a true, you're going to get false. So we're not going to go inside of this if statement, and we're going to return team1 score, which is 0, the dash, the hyphen, then team2 score, which is 0, and then the active team name, which is red. So this string matches up with the value returned, which is good for us. Then we're going to go ahead and actually record a play. So we call recordPlay with 1 as the number of points. Since 1 does not equal 0, we're going to skip over this if statement and go into the else. So if team1 is active, this is still true. So we go inside of the if statement here, and we set team1 score plus equal to the value of itself plus num points. So now team1 score plus equal 1, so that means team1 score is now 1. And then that matches up with the explanation that team1 earns 1 point. So now when we get the score again, we're going to set active team name to red, team1 active. This is still true, so the result of this is false. So we skip over the if statement and we are going to return team1 score, which is 1, the hyphen, team2 score 0, and then the active team name, which is red, which matches up with the value returned from getScore. Then we go ahead and record play again. This time we call it with 0 as a number of points. So unfortunately we're going to go into the if statement because 0 is equal to 0. And now we're setting is team1 active to the negation of the current value, which is false. So we're setting this equal to false. So the team1 is no longer active, so now team2 is active. Yay, they get a chance to, play the game. So now when we get the score, we're going to set our active team name equal to red off the bat, but then when we check whether team1 is active, this value is false. So if you negate a false, you get true. So we're going to set active team name equal to blue now, actually. Okay, so this string is now containing blue. So when we return the score, team1 score is 1, hyphen, team2 score is still 0, and now the active team name is going to be blue instead of red. And that matches up with the value returned game.getScore. We go ahead and we call it again, which is a little bit silly because there haven't been any points recorded. So we could go through all this logic again, but nothing has effectively changed. Our active team is still blue because team1 is not active, and when we return the string or the score, it's going to be 1 hyphen 0 hyphen blue because the second team is active. So we're going to get that this is our score, and that matches up with the expected value. Record play with 3. Let's go team 2, getting some points on the board. 3 does not equal 0. We don't go into this if, we go into the else now. If team 1 is active, team 1 is not active, so we skip over this if and we go into the else. So now we set team 2 score equal to itself plus the number of points that it scored in the record play. So team 2 score plus equals 3. It used to be 0 and now it is 3. We have added those 3 points to itself. So team 2 has earned 3 points. All right, now when we call getScore, set active team name to red, but unfortunately team 1 is not active, right? So false, negative false is going to be true. So active team name, we're setting this actually to be blue. So then when we return the score, team 1 score is 1, hyphen, team 2 score is 3, hyphen, the active team name is blue. All right, and that matches up with our expected return value for getScore. All right, and then we call recordPlay with 1 point. 1 does not equal 0, so we skip over the if. We go into the else. Team 1 is not active, it's false, so we're going to go into this else again. So we're going to set team 2 score plus equals 1. So it used to be 3, now we're adding on 1 point, so now it's 4. So that's the end of our recordPlay. Then we call recordPlay with 0. Unfortunately, 0 is equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to set is team 1 active, this internal state equal to the negation of itself, which is going to be true. So now we have team 2's turn has ended, and now team 1's turn has started. Team 1 is now active. So now when we call getScore, we're going to set active team name to red, then we're going to check whether team 1 is active. It is finally active as a result of the last turn. We're going to skip over this if, and now we're going to return team 1 score, which is 1, hyphen, team 2 score, 4, hyphen, active team name is red. And that matches up with the expected return value from getScore. All right, then we call recordPlay with 0 points. That 0 is equal to 0, so we're going to set is team 1 active to the negation. So it is no longer team 1's turn. They have ended their turn, and now team 2 is active. So the next statement we call recordPlay with 4 points. So 4 does not equal 0, so we skip this if. We go into the else. Is team 1 active? No, it is not. That's false. So we go into this else. So now we're setting team 2 score plus equals 4. It used to be 4. We're adding another 4 points, so now it's the score. The team 2 score is 8. And then we go ahead and we call recordPlay with 0 points. So 0 is equal to 0. So we're now negating, we're setting is team 1 active to the negation of its current value, which would be true. So what this means is team 2's turn has ended and now team 1 is active again. It's team 1's turn. So when we go ahead and we call getScore, we're going to set active team name to red. And then we check out whether is team 1 active. This is true, so the negation will be false. We skip over the else, the if, and when we return the score, we're going to get 1 hyphen 8 hyphen red, which matches up with the expected return value. The next statement, it actually creates a new scoreboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to, so let me do this. So we call this with lions and we call this with tigers as our 2 strings. So what this does is we're now creating a new scoreboard with new internal state inside of it. So the first parameter is responsible for team 1 name, which is lions. Second one is responsible for team 2 name, which is tigers. And then we're setting team 1 and team 2 score to be 0. And remember that we always default this to be true. Team 1 will always start off on a new scoreboard. This scoreboard's name is match, which is different from the previous scoreboard, which was game. So if we go ahead and we call getScore on match, that would be the one with lions and tigers. The team 1 name is lions. Is team 1 currently active? This is true. We negate a true. That's false. We skip the if. So we go ahead and return team 1 score, which is 0, hyphen, team 2 score, 0, hyphen, active team name, which is lions. And that matches up with the expected value returned. And then they do something kind of fun here. The next statement is they get the score from game. So remember that match and game are two completely separate scoreboard objects with their own internal state. So just because we created this new scoreboard object called match, it doesn't affect the state in game. Okay, so since we haven't recorded any more plays on the game object, the game scoreboard object, it means that the score is going to be exactly the same as it was the last time we called getScore, which was 1-8 red, 1-8 red. And that's it for all the statements in the table. It looks like all of our return values in internal state matched up with what the problem expected. So it looks like our implementation is pretty good here. Here is our final solution for the scoreboard class. We have our internal state, keeping track of the names of team 1 and 2 and the scores, and also which team is currently active using that Boolean. We have a constructor that takes in those two parameters. We have the recordPlay method that takes in the number of points and manipulates the scores of either team along with which team is currently active. And then we have the getScore method, which returns the string representing the score of each team and the active team. Hopefully this helps you out with this AP Computer Science problem. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and I'll get back to you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.